All right, today we're jumping into one of the most bizarre, influential, and honestly kind of terrifying visions ever written down. We're talking about a 2,500-year-old mystery from the Book of Daniel, and it's packed with monstrous beasts and cosmic thrones. Let's get right into it.
So it all starts with the prophet Daniel, and he's having this vision, or maybe it's a nightmare. The scene is pure chaos. You've got these heavenly winds churning up the great sea, which, in the ancient world was often a symbol for the chaotic world of nations outside of Israel.
And then, bam, out of this swirling, chaotic water, something starts to rise up. And it's not just one monster, it's four massive, horrifying creatures.
And we're not talking about your average, everyday animals here. Each one is completely unique, like a mashup of different creatures. It's a huge sign that we've left reality behind and entered a world of deep, deep symbolism.
So what on earth is going on here? Is this just a bad dream, or is it some kind of coded message about the future of the entire world? Well, let's start digging for clues. Now, thankfully, Daniel isn't just left hanging in this nightmare. An angelic guide actually shows up to give him the first and most important key to figuring this whole thing out. I mean, just take a second to picture how weird these things are. First, a lion with eagle's wings that gets propped up to stand like a human. Then, a bear, kinda lopsided, being told to go devour much flesh. Then a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads. And finally, some creature so awful it doesn't even get a name. It just has iron teeth and 10 horns. Total power. And here it is, the first big clue. The angel says it plainly. The 4 beasts are 4 kings. Now, our source clarifies this really means 4 successive empires. And if you know your Daniel, this probably sounds familiar, right? It totally echoes that other vision of the statue made of 4 different metals. We're watching a parade of world empires, but in monster form.
Okay, so 4 beasts, 4 kingdoms. Simple enough, right? Well, if we stop there, our source text suggests we're going to miss the most profound parts of this whole vision.
This is where our source brings in this really cool idea, the concept that a prophecy can have a shadow fulfillment before the big, ultimate one happens.
Think of it like a movie trailer. It gives you the main characters, it sets up the big conflict, but it's not the whole movie, right? The prophecy kind of plays out on a smaller scale first, setting a pattern for a much, much bigger event down the road. And this is where it gets super interesting. The source shows how this whole vision actually played out, like a mini version, right in Daniel's own lifetime. That arrogant little horn from the vision, its shadow is King Belshazzar, who looked down on Daniel. The heroic one like a son of man, that's foreshadowed by Daniel himself. The saints being persecuted, that's the plot against Daniel. And the final victory? That's Daniel being promoted to a high position of power. It all fits. Okay, so prophecies have layers, we get that. But this sets up an even bigger question, a more radical idea from our source. What if we've had the heroes and the villains of this story completely backward the whole time? All right, get ready for the twist. See, the usual way to read this vision is that these beasts are just evil, monstrous empires that hate God and his people. But our source argues that's a huge misunderstanding. First, let's look at why everyone thinks these beasts are the bad guys. I mean, the text is pretty clear, right? This horn that pops up on the 4th beast, it literally was making war against the saints. Case closed. The beasts are bad news.
But wait a second. Our source points out something absolutely genius that just flips this whole thing on its head. Remember that first beast? It was like a lion? Well, think back to the story of Daniel in the lion's den. What do those real lions do? They don't hurt Daniel at all. They're friendly to him. Instead, they devour his enemies. And that right there is the core idea. These huge, powerful empires, they are like those lions. They have immense power, yes, but they aren't created to be evil. They're meant to be guardians, protectors. They only get vicious and turn on the saints when God's people fail in their mission to be a positive influence on them. This just changes everything, doesn't it? So if the story isn't just about good guys versus monster empires, then who is the real hero of the story? Who actually wins in the end? Because the climax of this whole vision, it's not about destroying the monsters. It's about the arrival of a totally new kind of ruler and a totally new kind of kingdom. So you have this figure, one like a son of man, who shows up on the clouds. And yeah, that definitely points to a messianic savior king figure. But, and this is fascinating, Our source shows how the text itself keeps connecting this figure back to the saints. The victory isn't for some lone hero who slays the beasts. It's given to the collective people of God.
And the kingdom they get? It's not just the next one in line after the four beasts. Nope. This is the one, the final, everlasting kingdom that will never, ever be replaced.
And the vision's own explanation says it flat out. The kingdom, the rule, all of it, will be given to the people of the saints. The destiny of God's people isn't to be victims of history, but to be the ones who inherit it. Wow.
So here's the bottom line according to this reading. The big takeaway from this wild, epic vision isn't that God's people are supposed to build their own beastly empire with claws and iron teeth. No, the calling is something way more profound. It's to be truly human and to tame and train these powerful, beast-like systems of the world for good.
And that kind of brings it all back to us, doesn't it? This 2,500-year-old vision isn't just some dusty old story. It's a model for how to have influence. The goal isn't to become a beast, but to tame one. So what does that look like in our modern world with all of its powerful governments, corporations, and technologies? Now that is something to think about.